Okay, now this is one of the most important instruments. This is called a CTD. This goes down to 4,000 meters in depth. You can see these little strings attached. Every one of these tanks has an opening here and an opening at the bottom. When it's down, they are open, and then we can trigger with a line with this little which bottle to open. So we're going to catch water from exactly that height. Because we're going to be talking about measurements today. You can see I talked about open CTD. That's the more commercial CTD right there. This measures conductivity, temperature, and depth. So you have a sense of what does the water column look like. Right now, it's the calmest of oceans I've ever seen. So it almost feels like we are on a lake. And I don't know if any of you can identify what's floating on the water.
Plankton.
Do some of you see something floating on the water? Just
Yes.
take a look again. Kind of look.
It seems like baby jellyfish.
That's correct. This is favela. Fish is known to have a sail. So it has a little thing coming out, and it uses wind to essentially propel itself. This is where most deck operations happen. We're going to go to the top just for a few minutes.
Excuse me, sir, but I think there is some studies shows that we can extract electricity from jellyfish. Talking about jellyfish, yeah.
The bird is going around. Are you going to use the bike? Are you about to use the bike? I'm giving my class a little tour. There's a little exercise machine. So now you see the scale of the boat. That's the winch operator. We're going to go further up. Now it's starting to be quite high. We'll start in 5 more minutes. I'm just giving a lap tour to people that. And if people have questions, you can type them in chat. See, there's no wind, almost no wind. Up there is the bridge. You can see a radar. That's really for tracking any of the other vessels that are around. In the old days, you had to be spotting them, but now we know exactly who else is around. So today's a really good day.
Like he's gonna. I'm just like him.
I think you're on. I think you're on.
Yeah. The fuck? They're on the boat.
Recording in progress.
Try the sextant one more time. Aha. And which side should I be looking at? All right. So we're gonna try making a measurement because today's class is about measurements. Do people recognize what this is?
Sextant?
Yes, you can type in chat. Yes, it's a sextant. So we're gonna try to find, you can see the sun, but we wanna know how far it is. And I don't know if I can do this on camera, but we're gonna try. Oh yeah. Super hard. I can see it for sure. Yeah. Quite possible. You can actually, yeah. Yeah, I see the width. Yeah, it's too bright here. It's too bright, but I'm gonna come back when I finish the class. So the point is that to know where we are, we're gonna then put the sun in the horizon. I'll draw it and show it in a second, and then use that to back calculate where are we exactly right now. So I'm gonna go back in my room now so we can start the class. So we're back again. For the folks that joined early, got a little tour of the ship. I'm now going to connect to my computer. But while I connect, any questions about the boat? I'm going to drop my cell phone and connect from my computer. So welcome back. Today's class is going to be about measurements, accuracy in measurements and estimates. But before I start, any questions about the quick deck tour? How many of you have used a sextant before? No? It's a perfect analogy to what we are going to try to cover, which is the idea that quantitative numbers matter and learning how to use the tools to make explicit quantitative measurements in the sets of ideas that you all care about. And sextant is a great example of this because with very little, I mean, of course, this is prior to the GPS, you could very accurately figure out where you are on the planet only if you had a good clock. So maybe when go ahead, Kevin, question.
This is a story that we used to tell at MIT about how clocks were very important on ships because the Royal Society or the British government at the time started the longitudinal prize because it's very easy to figure out what your latitude is using the stars, but it's actually very hard to figure out your longitude. So a lot of
Yes.
people try to come up with ideas. Some people had crazy theories like bring a dog on the ship, see how many times it turns around before it lies down, and that's your longitude, or you can calculate your longitude. But some guy figured out that if you calibrate your clock with the prime meridian and figure out how much offset you are with local high noon, you can then calculate your longitude. But then that really pushed the revolution to figure out how to make really,
Better
really good clocks.
And
So
especially clocks that are independent of you're oscillating on a
temperature,
platform. And
yep.
every advance in clock happened because of the longitudinal prize. It's actually the original X Prize. It was the first time a prize was given for a technology that anybody could try to implement. And at that same time, there was a lot of controversy around who won the prize, but we have clocks for that. I'll talk about the sextant in a little bit, but any other questions about the walk? Otherwise, I'm going to start what we want to start. And then again, if people have the capacity, it's fun to see folks. So if you can turn your cameras on, it's much more interactive. It gives other people a sense of, oh, we're not talking into the oblivion. And because we will have lots of people on Zoom to begin with. So here is what I want to do. I have two big agenda items today. I want to cover and give the first homework out and cover the idea of the value of estimates. And then the second thing I want to do is to do an introduction so everybody can introduce themselves and we can start building teams. So it's going to be a little bit longer as a class. And what I will do is I will start with the estimates because we'll cover some amount of content because I don't want to in some way. And then post that. So I'm just giving you a warning. Maybe in half an hour or so, we're going to start introductions where I want you to introduce yourself, specifically describe where you're connecting from, but just also share one specific thing that bothers you. And that might be a seed of an idea or a project or an area that you're broadly interested in. So let me start with what I want to cover today, and we will then go back. There's also a reading assignment today as well. And here is the paper. Kevin, if you can post this paper, that would be useful on Discord. But some of you can take the screenshot of this as well. This is a paper from Ron Milo's group. We'll discuss this paper quite a lot today, but it's valuable for you to all read it independently. So Kevin, do you have the screenshot? You know which paper this is, right? Okay. Okay, what do I want to cover today? I want to cover a lot about what in the scientific field has been called by the numbers or Fermi's problems. In the kind of space that we are in, when we have an emotional response to a problem, you want to quantify it. You want to really calculate what does it truly, what is the scale of the problem? When you have a set of a solution in mind, you want to really quantify it to get a sense for how could that solution actually scale. And in physics, this is done quite often. And now that tradition is moving to also in biology, which is also done quite often. It's called Fermi's problems because Fermi was one person who popularized it. Fermi is not the only one who used to do this. And I'm going to just give you, this is an entire field in itself. There are classes taught by itself. I'm just going to give you a few resources, the power of this approach, and in some sense also give you a homework because the only way to get better at estimating numbers is by actually doing it. Okay, so I think I want to make sure that all of you have pencil and paper around. There's a joke that you calculate these things on the back of the envelope, so you could actually do it on the envelope. But it's useful to not worry too much about being right. I think this is the first hindrance that you often feel. if I was to ask you to estimate, you know, number of people with red hair, right? It's suddenly, it can feel overwhelming, or, number of books that are on a specific topic. We often just spend the time searching, but any amount of search that you do, you will find lots of gaps. And the idea is to be able to estimate your way out of these problems. So we're going to choose a few examples, but it's very important. Everything that I talk about today, you have to practice. So there's not much I can do other than just invite you to practice. We can definitely share a lot of by the numbers problems, and we will use them in the class to try to anchor in on the problems that we work on. So I'll read this quote. I'm curious if any of you can tell who this is from. I often say that when you can measure what you're speaking about and express it in numbers, you know something about it. But when you cannot measure it, when you cannot express it in numbers, your knowledge is of a meager and unsatisfactory kind. It may be the beginning of knowledge, but you have scarcely in your thoughts advanced to the state of science, whatever the matter may be. Anybody knows who said this? You can just unmute and shout out if anybody wants to guesstimate who said this.
Kelvin.
Kelvin, that is correct. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, sir. I'm Brunali. I'm from India. Actually, I done my doctoral study from India itself, and right now I'm pursuing postdoc in IIT.
Fantastic. That is Kelvin. Yes. There is another way of saying this, which is, the difference between messing around and engineering is that engineers write stuff down. So, just write stuff down. Numbers matter. I'll give you an example. You can watch this video. I don't have too much time today, so we'll just talk about this example. Anybody knows what this map is? This is a very famous map. This is the first data visualization that I know of that was done quantitatively. This is Jon Snow and the spread of cholera in London. And many of you know the famous hand pump. In global health, there is one hand pump that we all talk about. And it was Jon Snow. Cholera was spreading rapidly. He had an idea that it could be coming from the water source. And he went around the city mapping every hand pump. So the blue in this icon is multiple hand pumps that people were getting water from. And the red is the number of incidents of cholera and number of people that were infected in a given household. And you see how it concentrates over that one single hand pump? And then he very famously went and he removed the handle of that hand pump, because in the old days, there used to be a handle on a hand pump. I still remember that at home, you have to pump water. And that hand pump is still there, and it's 1854. And this was kind of, I think, the start of quantitative epidemiology, that, from a public health point of view, you have to have interventions driven by data. And of course, COVID is a great example of what did and did not happen in the context of being driven by data. But again, this measurements are important. He took the problem. He didn't just willy-wally around, oh, this might be there, so let me try this. This might be there. He actually went and measured it. So any of you who spend time making measurements, although it feels very tedious, you have to realize at the end of the day, that's the only way to kind of arrive at a very precise idea. And there's a beautiful documentary on this if people that are interested. Another example of measurements that I want to give you is something that I'm quite obsessed with, is the story of, how do we believe atoms exist? How many of you here actually believe atoms exist? Let me do this. So show of hands if you believe atoms exist. All of you think atoms exist. Weber doesn't think atoms exist. How many of you have seen an atom? So this was a trick question. Has anybody seen an atom? So why do we believe they exist? I mean, mathematically, you oh, okay, something is going on. There is an echo. Okay, mathematically, they fit many of the models that we have, and ironically, Anupma is correct. This question would have been more relevant maybe 30, 40 years ago when we couldn't see single atoms. Now we can actually also see there is STM, the scanning tunneling microscopes that can actually see individual atoms. But then again, see is a pretty tricky word. And it's all those pictures that you see of sets of things are measurements that are made that are then converted into an idea. And there was a great debate when Boltzmann had first proposed sort of the theory of statistical mechanics as a way to explain thermodynamics. Everybody believed in the law of thermodynamics, but nobody could explicitly say where they come from until Boltzmann proposed this mathematical idea. And at that time, and there is a great movie that Ashish Priya is referring to, which is actually called Atoms. It's also said to be the smallest film in the world. And if I had time, I would have played that movie, but I'll just tell you the story. The challenge was people thought, and especially Oswald, some of you remember Oswald's name in chemistry. Oswald's did a lot of work in equilibrium thermodynamics. There was two camps, the atomist, which believed in the atom, and I think the other ones were called, I forget the name. They had a name of their own, another camp. And they debated and debated and debated. And the argument was that although Boltzmann's ideas mathematically fit the framework, he could completely prove all of the rules of thermodynamics. He could derive the laws from statistical mechanics. The argument was, what if it's a mathematical idea? Okay, I think it's holists. I don't know, it's holist. Holist doesn't sound right, but I know atomist was correct. And the argument lied in the fact that what evidence did he have? What direct evidence did he have? And it was such a debate to a point where it's quite sad that every time Maxwell would go and Boltzmann would go and he would present his sets of arguments, and then these philosophers would come out and they would claim, and I think direct measurements are hard in that context at that time. And Boltzmann got so frustrated that in 1905, right around the time Einstein's paper came out on Brownian motion, which finally proved mathematically, and also then John Perrin's experiments that I'll show you in a second, Boltzmann killed himself because he just couldn't handle the amount of both pressure and just this was his life's work. And it's very ironic that Einstein's paper actually came right around the time. So it would have been possible that he could have read that paper, but he didn't see that paper. Again, another example of when you make measurements, you can then make claims that can stand the test of time. And so the claims that were built and made is, okay, I think it's maybe they're called the positivists. I don't know why they're called the positivists. But this was the measurement. This little picture proves atoms exist. So if you look right here, this is Jean Perrin's experiment. And what he's watching, I mean, this was quantitatively measuring explicitly Brownian motion. And from this, Einstein not only demonstrated that this works, but he actually calculated the size of the atom just using a single microscope. And any of you who have a full scope, there is a little short book that I'm finishing where using a full scope, you can measure the size of an atom. And Einstein, being Einstein, he actually measured the size of the atom with 10 different methods, completely different physics. And every time he would arrive at the same order of magnitude number. And that was the convincing proof to the world that if you're using completely different ideas and you arrive at the same size, then this is left as a homework exercise. But of course, this is very well documented how you can use Brownian motion. And actually, Perrin's experiment was quite clever. Not only did he do the classic experiment that we do, he actually did a colloidal sedimentation assay, which is he is making a measurement on a microscope, not from the top, but from the side. People knew about gravity. So these things, objects, if there was no Brownian motion, would all settle down to the bottom, but they don't. And so you can see the kinetic energy and gravitational energy is fighting each other. And that's exactly how the atmosphere is set. So you might think, there is gravity acting on all the sets of molecules. And this is why you have gases that get lower and lower density as you go further away. And so he used a similar idea, and again, many different ways, and he was able to measure the distribution of these. This is kind of one of the things that I love. Here is Einstein's number of measurements, and look at the number of methods that he used. From Brownian motion, he used displacements, rotational diffusion to get to this number of 64 10 to the power. He's measuring the number of moles, and then you can convert that. And you can see all of viscosity of gases, vertical distribution of dilute emulsions, critical opalescence, blueness of the sky. These are many different theories, but they were all estimates leading to roughly the same number: radioactivity, charge on a microscopic particle. And this is the power of being able to make estimates. And again, you might realize that for all kinds of projects, especially when there is not enough data, you have to be able to use physical principles to make as good an estimate as possible. So it's a very powerful technique. And then again, if people that are interested, I'm happy to share kind of a more historic anecdote on this story, because Perrin also, it was not easy. Perrin worked for many years to actually make these sets of measurements. Okay, another question / quote. People who know who said this can shout it out. In after years, I've deeply regretted that I did not proceed far enough, at least to understand something of great leading principles of mathematics. For men thus endowed, men and women endowed, seem to have an extra sense.
Einstein.
Okay, who else? Any other guesses? So this is Darwin. Yes. And, Einstein, of course, you can see a sense of regret, although Einstein also did believe that he was not a great mathematician, because Hilbert was beating him to a lot of different things, and Einstein had a lot of help from his mathematician friends. But Darwin, when he was writing his theory of evolution, he wanted to be much more quantitative, but he didn't have the kind of skills. But Darwin appreciated kind of the need that's associated with building quantitative ideas. So anyway, I'm just trying to preach to the choir. I hope you understand the power of being quantitative. Okay, so I come back to these two wonderful gentlemen. This is Rob Phillips and Ron Milo. They've published a beautiful book. It started when Ron was a postdoc, I think, at Caltech. They started getting together. I mean, in biology, physics, this has always been the case. In biology, it was always there, but it was not compiled together. So they created this beautiful resource that's now available online. I think it's called By the Numbers. This became a book called Cell Biology by the Numbers. And the idea was to just write down things that we know. And again, in any different field. And one thing that becomes valuable is, what if we did this in global health? What if we did this in education? What if if you care about an educational kind of a context, really dive deep and try to understand the source of the problem using numbers? And so this is not just applied to physics or biology. It applies to environmental problems. It applies to social problems. And it takes a lot of time and effort to gather a resource like that that will be useful for others. You could think about agriculture. Having a resource like this in purely in agriculture as a community, you can think about water. And there are some, I would say, numbers and estimates and things that are out there that people make, but having an entire encyclopedia of a given field in one single place is remarkable. So if you go to this website by the numbers, you can type up anything you care about. You can ask the width of a human hair. You can also ask the average diameter of a nucleus. You can ask the density of a nucleus. You can say, on average, how many mitochondria exist in cells. Uh, you can start asking diffusion constants for all kinds of proteins. And it's quite valuable because you start gaining an intuition. And for some of you who'll be working on, say, sustainability projects with cell biology as an anchor point, it's important also to estimate the limits of our ideas, because you might say, oh, I'm going to modify this cell to be able to do that. And then you think a little bit about the scale of what is needed. That would be the largest bioengineering project ever taken on the planet. And so it's important to understand, for example, many synthetic biology approaches that are quite remarkable, but people forget to do by the numbers. I mean, the meat problem is a classic one, sustainable meat. Lots of people are trying to grow single cells and tissues in culture. And if you do by the numbers, then you might realize the amount of energy that's needed to grow cells by the culture where you don't get an infection, which is what really animals are able to do. It's the immune system that allows them to survive. Uh, it's tremendous. And so, in some sense, you have to rethink whether, I'm making a commentary between plant proteins and animal proteins made in tissue culture flasks. So that's why when Google and a couple other people did that stunt of a burger made from cell cultures, like the price was $10 million for that burger, one burger, because it's the amount of antibiotics and other sets of resources. But again, you could do that by the numbers before you actually take on that $10 million endeavor. So it's very important. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but this website is online. It would be phenomenal if you all got used to it. And kind of as an estimate, I can just go online, see by the numbers cell biology website. Let's see what shows up.
I put a
don't
link in the
know.
chat as well if you want to use that.
Yes, I might try taking a look at that. That's funny that I know my network is working. Okay, something is not right. Okay, this bio numbers was the original one. Then now cell biology by the numbers has something. So, you can type up anything you care about. I like this one. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen now. So here's the site. Spend some time on it. I'm going to ask you guys to search certain sets of things. Estimated mitochondrial power. It sort of gives you, if you're going to make some new energy source using mitochondria, how many mitochondria do you actually need? Or you could try estimating what is the temperature of mitochondria. That's a good one. When mitochondria is functional, how hot is it? Like engines get hot, so people believe mitochondria get hot. Okay, so this is a phenomenal resource. We'll use it from time to time. Um, and again, it's in many languages. Lots of data has been actually translated. For COVID, there was a big sets of numbers. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but you all know in the context of journalism and data, how important role data played, but also many organizations and entities and malicious efforts to also hide the data or misreport the numbers. And again,
It's primarily because people realize the power in numbers. That's only why they want to manipulate it. And you have to be able to estimate. You can see the numbers you're reading in the newspaper, write down a small little estimate and show that these two numbers are not compatible with each other. Something very simple. And again, it's a very important criteria. If you're getting conflicting pieces of information, you should be able to put them together to say that they are not compatible. So something must not be right. Okay, so let's do let's find some numbers that surprise us. And then I have my favorite that I'm going to show today. But before we do that, anybody wants to something that's been bothering you and you might want to estimate it. You might want to guess or let the class do a calculation with you. It can also be a fun one. How many cricket balls are used in a game? I mean, maybe that's too specific for people that love cricket. You can chat, you can write in the chat. Vaibhav, go ahead.
Maybe estimating the number of people going to hospitals with lung related or cardiovascular diseases in areas with high air pollution.
So this is a really important one. And again, you see that it's anchored into a problem and it's anchored to say that you can, you might go and try getting to all the hospitals and you might realize that, I don't have all the data and you have to find sets of gaps. So all of you will be doing the first homework where you will choose a problem that bothers you and you will try to estimate certain sets of numbers. It's something that should take you a couple of hours. It's not about just digging in and say, oh, I found that number now. It's about honing your skills. Aryan, can you introduce yourself and then also suggest a estimate problem?
Yes, hi, am I audible?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Aryan Marcha. I am a final year college student right now, undergraduate, and I'm from Delhi right now, University of Delhi. So one of the problems, like something that I would want to estimate was recently that I got admitted to a hospital, right? And I witnessed a lot of, so there are very strict hygiene measures. Like you have to switch all the gloves for hands, for your feet, masks, surgical masks and all. So, and I also witnessed a very stark rise in the number of patients that I could see, like coming day, like on now within an hour, like 30, 40 patients per doctor. And each time certain procedure was undertaken, new gloves, new sets of gloves, new sets of different surgical instruments and so on. So how many of those do we use in something as small as just a single hospital? And given that the hospitals for me function as an organism in itself, just the way let's say our cell works. So imagining that at a scale of the whole city, of a whole city, like Delhi is a big rush, like a rush hour city. So then scaling it up to Delhi, then to the whole country, and then to the whole world. That really makes me wonder as to,
I love this question. I think
yeah,
you're talking about sustainability of many of our practices in hospitals per se.
precisely. Like hygiene practices are very important, but the amount of plastic and the amount of waste
That's
generated
correct.
there,
Yeah.
you
And I think
must calculate it.
there's a similar version of the estimates people have been talking about, the amount of plastics that we generate in our labs. Many of you have been involved in certain sets of
Right.
initiatives. This would be a phenomenal, so Aryan, you've just defined your own homework problem. So try to make an estimate. And one of the important factors there is that only when you have the astronomical sense of this problem could you even arrive at the right approach to tackling it. And I think it would
Right.
be valuable to do it, also do it in an average hospital in the US and an average
Right.
hospital. I mean, you can
In
choose
India.
sets of hospital, say in Delhi as an example. I'm seeing a
Right.
couple other examples. A number of women who are sick but can't take any drugs because of pregnancy. Um, I see Anupma had a question around a number of stomata. That's a really good one, Anupma, because There are estimates right now that with the rising CO2, the number of stomata on the leaves are starting to change. And it's actually a really important citizen science project for all of you, or wherever you are. You can go outside and measure for a specific, say, the same tree or plant, density of stomatal cells, whether that correlates with the CO2 or the local CO2, for example. So that's a really good one. How many humans have lived on Earth till now? Uh, that's a fun one. So you guys are all writing number of plastic actually being recycled. So Rupali and I were in Dharavi a couple of weeks ago, and we had a big discussion around the recycling practices in Mumbai. And one of the estimates that was given is that 80% of the plastic that was being recycled in Dharavi. At that same time, it's actually what is the total amount? Uh, what was being recycled, 80% goes there, but is that still 1% of the number? And frankly, in the US, there has been this massive thread around claim. As long as somebody takes the plastic away and takes your garbage away, there was an estimate that was made from Recology that less than 5 to 10% of that was actually being recycled. It was all going in landfills. So it makes us feel good that we separate out our plastics, but if you don't actually recycle it, that doesn't do anything. And since I'll be talking about plastics quite a lot in a few minutes, that's a good one. I like that term. Okay, so I think you get the point. What I would like to do as in homework, the first homework will really be that you all choose, and don't just choose it randomly. Try to choose something that is deeply in an area that you are excited about doing a project in. So in some sense, it'll anchor. It's also something that you could start thinking about, and you might arrive at an estimate that tells you that no, as yet, we are not ready to tackle that problem, or our approaches are just not there. Like, for example, if you have an idea about trying to remove space debris, if you do the numbers and you kind of try doing a calculation around how much energy might be needed to remove every single screw that's floating around in space, you might arrive at a conclusion that maybe right now we don't have a good solution for it. I mean, microplastics might, and you might back off from that project I mean, of course, the estimate remains, but your approach might not stand. So it's useful to choose something that you're passionate about, and we will be sharing that. And next week, essentially, what's a good time? I think weekend is good. So let's do that on Monday. Everybody has one sheet of paper, and you only get one sheet of paper, either one sheet of paper or an envelope. Choose what you want, but in one sheet of paper, you'll be sharing that with the whole class. So I'm not going to be grading anything. Everybody else, you can pick up anybody's else's estimate, and you can then give some comments on it, and you can try to improve. Remember what we had said about the and versus the but culture? You will all be, if you don't choose one, I'll randomly give you one, and then you will be trying to improve on somebody else's estimate. So is the homework assignment clear? Remember, I had said this is a contact sport, so it's not this is not optional. Okay, so we're on to the homework. Let's try. I want to cover this paper a little bit briefly because I think lots of you have talked about plastics. We've discussed a lot of threads around the environmental side of the story. This is a great paper to kind of start in that space. And it also just tells you the value. It has also led to another, again, this is from Ron Milo's lab. It was a Nature paper in 2019 that estimated and showed that global human-made mass now exceeds all living biomass. That means that everything that we have created as society has crossed over our buildings, our plastic, and we're going to go into these details in a little bit. And it's a really, there has been a term that's been used for our era. It's called the Anthropocene. And this Anthropocene has arrived for many reasons, from extinction. Okay, I think there is an echo again. But the most important part is you have to read the paper. I'm just going to show and ask. So, given all of these things that you see on the top, livestock, viruses, fungi, plants, all the bacteria on the planet, all the insects, archaea, fish, and humans, who do we think has the largest biomass on the planet? And I'm hoping you haven't read the paper. You can raise your hand and
Insects?
insects. Okay, that's one. Who else wants to pitch for humans? Nobody?
Bacteria.
Bacteria,
Bacteria.
that's a good one.
Humans.
Humans, okay.
Plants.
And
I think plants.
Plants.
somebody said plants. Now, if we cover everything,
Yes.
we'll at least get it right. Uh, uh, no votes for archaea, huh?
Orthopods.
Arthropods, yes, insects. Okay, so let's look at the numbers. And when I first saw this, I mean, I had some idea, but because it was quantitative, it helped me understand how our planet works. So take a look at this. This is the data that after lots of estimates, and again, their methodology is in the paper. You can argue with it. I argue with it sometimes. I think about. Look at this. On the left, there is 546 billion tons of carbon. And plants are 450 billion tons of carbon out of that. It's a remarkable number to think about. And then remember, all the things that we're talking about, the one on the right box is actually a zoom in here. So when I zoom, 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 this little box is everything, all the arthropods, annelids. And then out of that, there's a tiny little box of humans. So a couple of takeaways from here. The first one that I like is plants versus bacteria. It's actually pretty impressive to think about the bacterial biomass on the planet. You could do an estimate to try to say what of this biomass is terrestrial versus ocean. Ocean are volumetric, so there are some good estimates around that, but 12% of all biomass on the planet is bacteria. Now, after that, it's fungi. Nobody said fungi. Fungi are larger in biomass than anything that you can estimate that's around all the insects, all the fish, humans, everything combined, all animals. Archaea are 3 times larger than all the animals. A kingdom that most people don't even know about. So everybody knows that tree of life is divided in bacteria, archaea, and then all of our eukaryotic systems. And so this is 3 times. And then I know some of you are microscopists. So look at that. This makes me super happy. Protists are actually much larger than all animals on the planet, actually twice. So these are single-celled eukaryotic organisms floating around. And I was IDing something last night I had just found, and here's my book of protists. It is a key. And so these little marvelous creatures, if I was to now flip over and show you all of these little doodles, are much higher in biomass than any of the animals combined. So you kind of start realizing that, oh, wait a second, if I was to do something in a space, it gives me a much better anchor point. Okay, so now let's look at humans and livestock. This is another shocking surprise for me. I knew we had a lot of livestock, but I think we have more pigs on the planet than humans. And in fact, there is a beautiful paper that's talked about that if an alien species came in the future, it will think that chickens ruled our planet. Primarily because the only fossil record they will find of the biomass will be billions of chickens that we kill, and all the bones get into the fossil record. So they will think that this planet was ruled by chickens. And again, it gives you an estimate of how important this food problem is, because now the biomass is actually, and then again, if you start looking at wild mammals, it just keeps going down and down and down. So 0.06 billion is humans and 0.007 is really the wild mammals. While you could argue that we were one of those wild mammals, and so this has really dramatically changed. Worms are also quite big. It's out there. So all the worms in the world are larger than any of the wild birds. So I know birding is a big deal, but so nematology should also be a study of nematodes should also be a big deal because you can see in biomass they're much larger. So it's a phenomenal paper. It kind of puts a lot of things in perspective. Take a look at it. Um, I think the key, another insight in the paper is this estimate, which now again should be quite scary. Uh, the first one is now, if you were to say plastic versus animals. So we've made more plastic than animals on the planet. So that's 8 gigaton roughly, then 4 gigaton in terms of animals. And then trees, if you think the living biomass is 900 gigaton, the building infrastructure is around 1,000 gigaton, 1,100. So we have also exceeded that. And because of this, this is kind of now the comparison between, and you can just look at concrete alone accounts for a significant portion. And this was the claim of the paper that in 2020, we have exceeded the total biomass on the planet. And, again, it's there's lots of corrections that you can make in something like this, but it's important to understand the gravity of this in some sense, because you sort of start realizing that, of course, we are meddling with our ecosystem if our impact is at this large scale. Okay, so I think in the last few minutes before, I want to turn to now introductions. I just want to share a few data sources, but I think you guys are all very good at searching for good sources of data. It's very important that you search to find what the original source of data is. So the reason before telling you this sets of estimates, I pointed you to this paper is because in the paper, they list every single source that they use. And you can go down in a rabbit hole to try to estimate everything that was actually projected and predicted. So our world in data is a phenomenal resource. And, I think one of the challenges that currently a lot of data sources are being scrubbed. So it's very important to archive these sets of sources itself. There is a lot of attack directly on the data sources. SDG Tracker has good data sets in terms of thinking about how poorly we are doing on many of these sustainability tracks. This is again, our World in Data has a global health section. So if you're interested, there is a WHO has a section on the Global Health Observatory. GHDX is a really great data set. And then you can find many, many more. There is a GHS index. This is another global health resource out there. And I think one important thing that we want to do is make sure that the problem that you will do is you have to cite all your sources. So in that one page must include things that you estimated, and then there are no numbers for that's okay. But the other one is that you really have to cite. And if some of you are really interested in kind of honing your skills on this, there are these two books that I would recommend. I mean, there is an entire course that we offer on campus. It's called Back of the Envelope Physics, where we just do something like this. So I don't have that much time in this class, but these are the two books that I would ask. I mean, Street Fighting Mathematics is really, really fun. It's Sanjoy's book, and it's not about fighting, but it's about making estimates and using mathematics very quickly to arrive at a decent estimate of the problem. Okay, with that in mind, I want to transition to anything's in Q&A. Any questions that arise to your mind, you can raise your hand. And then after that, we're going to initiate and start introduction so that everybody gets to know everybody. I will call out on people's name. Remember, you're supposed to introduce yourself briefly. We can't have long introductions, unfortunately. I would love to spend more time, but then it's not fair to the other people that are in the line. Share what you work on currently, where you are, uh, and one problem that bothers you, something that bothers you. Okay, any questions?
Dr. Prakash, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and I will
Shivika, you
also
have to
utilize,
introduce yourself.
yes, I will utilize this time to introduce myself as well. I am a PhD student at Purdue University, and I'm from India. I did my bachelor's in civil engineering and then my master's in sociology, and I'm currently working in the field of agriculture. So it's quite a mix. My question to you is, so I'm currently working on social ecological memory and trying to see the memory around the weather events. Is it preserved in the minds of people and how it translates to decision making? So far, this is an exploratory study, and we are taking the qualitative approach to do this. But I'm really keen, like I'm taking agricultural economics class as well, and where we see technological spillovers and quantify it in terms of total factor productivity, that how technology spillover can transform the yield in a developing nation, let's say. So my question is that do we have, you provided a lot of sources, do we have any sources where the estimates are made where we can quantify the loss of knowledge, how much the loss of knowledge translated to economic loss or the loss of any certain tradition or practices? Yeah,
Yeah, I
that
think a couple things come to mind, Shivika. So first of all, this is a beautiful example of a homework problem, like for estimates, because you are actually trying to do something on a space that you care about. This is why I keep coming back. Work on things that bother you. And if that's the case, an incredible example that I'll give you is from South Africa. So South Africa, because of apartheid and many sets of things, all the schools were scrubbed of much of indigenous knowledge that existed in South Africa around plants and the native biodiversity. And one of the big thing that has happened in agricultural practices across South Africa is primarily there has now been a realization of being able to bring many more prior agricultural practices that had existed, primarily because that's the most productive in many ways. And so I think there is a great set of papers that talk about, and again, much of this is also focused on science education, as to how do you bring the knowledge back. But if you're thinking about trying to estimate loss of knowledge, let's start with uh, loss of our plants that we used to grow as humanity and see what we grow now. Try quantifying that. Try figuring out in old texts what were the sets of plants that were described. And now with ChatGPT and many of what is called uh, digital social science, you can really take any piece of text and try searching for words for plants. I was in a tomb in Egypt a couple of weeks ago. I was shocked to see in these ancient 5,000-year-old tombs actual species. Like I could identify the species of fish that was just drawn in a carving in a rock. And I was thinking at that time, wouldn't it be really fun to map the biodiversity of what people knew from these drawings? So seeds is a great way. And again, I'm thinking out loud here, but this is exactly the kind of question where these are not just run-of-the-mill questions that people ask, because folks that do these data libraries kind of try asking run-of-the-mill questions because they are not so deeply thinking. They just want to gather as much data as possible. But when you're thinking about a very specific question, it challenges you. So it's not trivial. I took the easy way out because I know a little bit about seeds. Similarly, you can think about an event that comes to my mind is the Korea War. If you think about agricultural practices before and after separation of North and South Korea, and you can look at what has happened, what has been preserved. You can ask yourself a question around this loss of knowledge in a specific context. I think one thing that will become clear in this class is if you're working on a problem and you have not chosen a context, a very specific context, then you are lost. So it's very important early on to anchor yourself. It doesn't matter that that area or that set of people that you're working for is very small, but you have to solve a problem in a specific context for a specific group of people. So choose, I would say, then you can generalize it. Then you can go back and say, oh, now what I've learned with this, I would like to kind of broaden that out. Okay, so that was a great question. Anything else that people want to ask about? And again, we will talk a lot more about this over the course. Anybody else has any other kind of burning question on the power of estimates and what we discussed? Otherwise, we're going to start intros. Okay, I'm not hearing any hands. And again, I apologize for the Stanford cohort. They've already done the intros, but none of the other people know you, so you're going to be doing that again. And I'm going to I have names on my screen, and so we will just go from left to right. So this is in no particular order, but please, please, please keep it short. Otherwise, we'll be here for many hours, which can be tricky for many people that are connecting from late night. Okay, first is Mohammed Aziz. Quick intro and what bothers you.
Hello everyone. Can you hear me first?
Yes.
So hi, I'm Mohammed Aziz Nefer, 20-year-old pre-engineering student, means freshman student at MedTech in Tunisia. I'm currently working on a mosquito surveillance device for disease detection and a CO2 capture device also. One scientific problem that really bothers me is how preventable diseases like malaria still kill so many despite available tech. We have the tools, but not enough action or innovation reaching the people who need it most.
Thanks, Mohammed. And if you look at the recordings, I think Kevin, you've shared the recordings for the lectures, right? We spent the first class just on malaria, maybe the second class just on malaria. And we will talk quite a lot about malaria in this class. Okay, next is Kamal. No, Kamal. I'm going to get it right at some point of time.
Yes, I'm sure. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So I am Kamal. I'm a final year grad student at TIFR Mumbai from India. And I'm by the Arabian Sea, as I said yesterday also. And I'm a cell biologist by training. I'm pursuing my master's and PhD integrated PhD course at TIFR. And I'm looking at how axonal transport is regulated in neurons. The flux of axonal transport is regulated in neurons. One problem that bothers me and that I'm looking to work on in the future is how technology development and the loss of in-person communication between human beings is a leading cause for increase in loneliness across the globe, and how socially isolated people are actually developing many of these diseases, and there are strong correlates between isolation, loneliness, and many of these maladies that we are trying to solve, and that has a global economic burden on the world. Yeah.
Fantastic. Next is Kevin.
Hi, my name is Kevin. I am a rotation student. I rotated with Manu Prakash, and I am studying the intersection of biophysics, fluid mechanics, but also how physical systems, even without a brain, can learn. I guess something that bothers me is how much latent potential there is in getting citizens involved with doing science. So that's why I'm very interested in the citizen science front. I think everyone has the capacity to be curious, and it's a matter of tapping into it and enabling it through Frugal science framework.
Okay, and Kevin didn't say this, but he's also a volunteer TA. We should give him extra credit because he's actually not getting credit to TA, but he's doing a majority of the legwork so far. So thank you, Kevin. Next is Aiden.
Hey guys, I'm Aiden. I'm zooming in from California in the same place where Kevin is at Stanford, and I work on the biophysics of innate immunology. So I work with neutrophils, and I learn how they go through this process called mitosis and try to understand the biophysical principles of that. What bothers me is how expensive research is, and I think taking a more niche dive at this, I want to make, like, for example, the foldscope. It's amazing how cheap it is, but I think Manu said if we can get it cheaper. So that's kind of like my interest.
And Aiden is also connecting from the lab. Looks like there is a giant microscope right behind him.
It's an optical tweezer microscope.
Perfect. Okay, next is Ashish. Actually, before I forget, remember Fridays is Teach Me Anything. I know Kevin did a short session on bookbinding. Aiden, if you want, you could do a short session on Zoom on how optical tweezers work. We might realize that there is so much knowledge packed in all of those. So Fridays I'm keeping open. It's Teach Me Anything. Anything, Rupali, if you're listening, you can run a session on how recycling works in Dharavi. And it's very valuable. And Anupma is a master educationist, and she can just talk about half an hour how to work with kids. You guys all have incredible sets of skills that are really important to share. So Kevin is maintaining that list on Notion. You don't need anybody's permission. Just write down. If you can recruit people, you might have an interest in woodworking, anything that you care about, but teach to other people. Okay, next is Ashish.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashish Priye. I'm a professor here in the United States in University of Cincinnati. And my lab works on many problems, but in the interest of introduction, one of the problems that I'm focused on right now is diagnostics of tuberculosis. So it's a challenging problem. I can talk more about it later because the walls of this bacteria is very thick, so it's hard to get DNA out. But outside the lab, I like interacting with students, especially breaking complex ideas into simple things when I teach. And one of the things I like about this, the idea of this course is, I'm really impressed by how, in this course, people are able to take something that they're able to make work and then scale it up in like a bigger context. So I really want to learn how to be effective at that, and I'm happy to help anyone else in whatever questions they have. Thank you.
And I think I just want to reiterate back again, there's just incredible amount of knowledge. You're all teachers and we are all students. And so we're going to rely on each other. Usually I also recruit a massive team of mentors once we have figured out the sets of projects. But you will soon realize those mentors are just students in the prior courses. So it's just a community in some sense. So lean in on each other. It might be that Ashish might choose to join a team that is not working on TB, but he can be a mentor to another team working on TB. Okay, next is John.
Hi, my name's John Felix. I'm zooming in from Stanford. But I'm like originally from California. I grew up in like rural California. And I'm a senior, so fourth year undergrad in bioengineering here at Stanford. And a problem that's always bothered me is kind of like I grew up in a very like agriculturally centered like city and area. So environmental justice issues have always kind of been something that I think about a lot. Like specifically just thinking about the fact that the people who feel like the biggest effects of these issues are people like farm workers and like low income people in these areas that are also like the people who aren't predominantly contributing toward these issues, and how like the unfairness in that whole system works, and how we can mitigate those issues are kind of things that I think about a lot.
And then John, can you say specifically which town did you grow up in, or which?
Yeah, the city is called Porterville. if you're familiar with California, it's like between Fresno and Bakersfield. It's like relative, like a decently sized city, like maybe 70,000 population, but like just
This
surrounded
would
by
qualify in
agriculture.
Central California, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's like the middle of like the Central Valley.
Yes. Yeah. Much of the food for United States, most people don't know this, is actually grown in Central California. If California stopped exporting its food to other, we would just be eating corn and a few other things. Okay, next on my list is Youngju.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Lovely. Hello, everybody. My name is Youngju. I am also coming in from Stanford. I'm a master's student here in bioengineering, one of the TAs for the course. And I'm currently working primarily in a lab that studies the hedgehog cell signaling pathway. So we study how cells signal to each other, how they communicate, and how that relates to a lot of really important functions in both humans and other animals. And I think one problem that bothers me, and again, I think people have touched on this, including Ashish, but a lot of really cool ideas get worked on in the academic setting, and then I think a lot of them really don't make it out to the world, or they don't get implemented in a way that reaches enough people, and they're very restricted in scale. And so I think a lot of the projects that we talk about in this class are super inspiring, and want to work more on that end.
Okay, and then you will hear Youngju's name as well often enough because he's also the second TA. And then Ian is the third person. Okay, next is Danny.
Hi, I'm Danny. I'm a first year student in the oceans department, so I'm studying marine science. I'm actually at Stanford right now in my dorm. I'm working on 2 projects right now. One of them I'm looking at marine diseases, so diseases in the ocean and how they're being impacted by warming waters, ocean acidification, and pollution. And the other project I'm looking at is coral bleaching. And the question that kind of keeps me up at night actually relates to coral bleaching and how a lot of people are trying to prevent coral bleaching, but not many people are looking at recovering corals after they've been bleached. And the question I'm really intrigued on pertains to this class is, can we get a low-cost solution that we can scale up to get divers and scuba divers actually out in the water to try to recover these corals after a warming and bleaching event?
That is fantastic. And then Danny also goes back and forth between Stanford campus and the Hopkins Marine Station. We are going to go as a class to Hopkins Marine Station just to get the sense of, for anybody who will be working on more ocean-related things, that will be the anchor point. And then Danny has also offered a seat if people want to drive with him any Monday, or he will choose the day. Okay, next is Devajyoti.
Hello everyone, am I audible?
Yes.
So I'm Devjyoti Roy. I grew up in West Bengal, India, and right now I'm a chemical engineer and I'm working on in vitro models, specifically spheroids and organ chips in IIT Bombay. And one of the things which really I feel which bothers me a lot is that a change in the lifestyle which we have due to the technology and some points also as mentioned by Kamal. So they have directly influence on our epigenetics. And we might not be knowing how much we are just kind of uh, increasing the negativity in us, and then we're just carrying forward it to next generation. We are not just aware of it. Even microplastics is just one of them, because it has been found that there's too much of a microplastic in brain. I mean, it's crossing the blood-brain barrier. So we never know how much just of the negativity we're just passing on. So that bothers me a lot, I feel.
Yeah, and it's fantastic that also Kamal and you are both in Bombay. So if a team gets built around this, then you would be local. Okay, next is Kavita.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I am really happy to be a part of this community. It's my first session today, and I've already, set in. So I'm Dr. Kavita Pandey. I head the Department of Bioanalytical Sciences at Khalsa College in Mumbai. In last 13 years of education, my basic research has been in bioprocess technology, moreover working with probiotics, prebiotics, and fermented foods. So therefore, I slowly moved on into the space of gut microbiome. And what intrigues me the most is how the lifestyle choices that we make directly impacts on the gut microbiota and the dysbiosis. So that is the space that I'm trying to explore. Specifically, one of the diseases that I've come across and excites me the most is ankylosing spondylitis, which is basically because of the sedentary lifestyle and a lot of inflammation that we get in because of, again, wrong lifestyle disorder choices. And probably in that space, I still have to fine tune what question I'll be working on. So in the next class, I'll have the question and the analysis ready. So that's all from me. Thank you
Fantastic.
so
And
much.
again, thank you for connecting. I'm hearing a very strong Mumbai community. This is exciting.
Let me cite, I've joined this because Anupma ma'am had guided me about this frugal
okay.
science thing, and
I see that
I
there
would
is a
like to thank
network
her too.
effect here. Yes, yes, I had guessed that. Okay, next is Noe Martinez.
Hello, everyone. My name is Noe. I am currently at Stanford University. I'm a first year here. My major is undecided, but I have like a broad range of interests. Last summer, I worked as a carpenter with my dad. Right now, I'm working as a volunteer to develop like curriculum for Spanish students from Spanish-speaking countries. And an issue that bothers me is a lot of the untapped potential we have due to the achievement gaps between students of like higher income and lower income. I think like Kevin was saying, like people are naturally curious, and if we don't do enough to get that curiosity out of people, then we're missing out on a lot of cool inventions.
Yeah, that's well said, Noe. And I think in the context of science education and education in general, definitely becomes a strong theme. There's a lot of expertise both in this room, but also otherwise in trying to tackle some of that. Next is Peter.
Hi, everybody. I'm a second year biology PhD student, also here at Stanford. I work in a lab focused on engineering filamentous fungi, so molds and mushrooms for all different kinds of sustainability purposes.
I'm sure you were happy about the biomass in fungi, huh?
I appreciate the representation, yes. I think generally I'm really excited about trying to move our society more towards some kind of circular economic system where we can start looking at waste systems and finding value in them. And I think there was a piece recently in Nature Biotechnology about microbial-based plastic recycling, because I think a couple of companies have started bubbling up about it. And I'd be interested in non-commercial ways of frugal science ways of approaching things like that. But a statistic or a figure that stuck out from that piece was about the accumulation of microplastics in the brain specifically versus other parts of the body. And the notion that maybe the tipping point for us to start really caring about this will be the idea that we could have a total accumulation of the size of a plastic spoon worth of plastic in our brains by a certain age. And that's terrifying.
So I'll say something. You know, I had last week's class, I had expressed my anger and kind of dismays because I'm right close to the Great Garbage Patch, the Pacific North Garbage Patch in the ocean. And we've been doing tows in the deep waters, and we're seeing every single tow a ton of plastic. Now, when I say deep, it's actually 600 meters, a kilometer deep. And so starting last week, we started collecting fish in the mid-pelagic zone, twilight zone, and we're going to try to test how much plastic they have. Because one of the things that we often think about is only plastic characterization that happens in the fish that are caught. But this is impacting ecosystems that are far removed from us, deep in the dark. And you start thinking a little bit about when you're finding so much plastic in ecosystems that we can measure, human tissue is the most common access from a medical point of view. Start realizing that the impacts are much, much wider. I think also, Peter, you should share sets of resources. It's very important that you guys start populating the idea board on Notion. What you said when you reference to it, non-commercial approaches, I think it's very important to be thinking about from a point of view of scale for these problems. Certain class of solutions has to reach the broadest communities for it to matter for anyone. environmental problems are such that you cannot just locally solve it and assume that that solution will scale. So thinking a lot more about open source in that context, I'm not saying it's the only approach, but it is a very important approach to keep in mind. And as teams, you will all be making a decision at some point of time that the approach, what domain you would like to put that in. And I think the decision will be on the team collectively when we sit together, but it's important to think about that as a question to keep in mind. Okay, next is Megan.
Yeah, hello. I'm a first year Bio-E PhD student at Stanford, and so I'm in my rotations right now. I know I'm interested in synthetic biology with applications to the environment, so that's what all my rotations have focused on. But I'm also really passionate about education. And so the problem I'm thinking about for this class is I feel like in the United States, some schools have, like high schools have access where kids can actually do hands-on science in their classes and do things like run gels, whereas at other schools, it's just not an option and science just isn't as exciting because you're just sitting in lectures all the time. And so I'd love to expand the Frugal Science toolkit for students to do hands-on science at a young age.
And then Megan, we have a project in collaboration now with Stanley's lab to try to scale up some of the kits they've been making on the CRISPR side of the story. So this would be a wonderful conversation if some of you pick up more molecular approaches in classrooms. Next is Minyan.
Hi everyone, this is Mingyan. I zoom in from Sydney, Australia. I graduated with my master degree from SUNY Buffalo, majored in geography. I trained with GIS remote sensing, and now I work a lot with data at global marketing agency. And I worked with clients like a pharmaceutical brand. So personally, I'm quite interested like in the health space, especially like the well-being. I'm interested to see how the data or creative data visualization can increase the awareness on the health issues.
Yeah, and I think, again, going back to the number of skills and backgrounds people come in, the example I wanted to, the Jon Snow's example, it was really the visualization that actually convinced people. It was not just the raw numbers either. A lot of problem in how we share data currently and how the trust in data is lost because it's just a number. I'm seeing a note on the chat for folks that have to leave. Some of the things are recorded, and then if you have to, I think this is the most fun part of the class, so I would want people to stay for listen to other people's introductions. But if you urgently have to leave your intro in the Notion and then watch the intros. Okay, next we have is Shivam Sahu. Okay, Shivam, you are still muted.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, I joined from two devices with my laptop and my phone because the phone was not working.
Yes.
Sorry, the laptop audio voice not working. Anyway, so I'm not yet enrolled in the formally in the course. I have filled the application, but a friend of mine told me that you can join and ask professor today. So I hope I get a chance to get enrolled.
Yeah, talk to Kevin.
Anyway,
Yes.
sure. Thank you, professor. So I'm presently TF research assistant and UPSC aspirant at Ashoka University, India. If you allow me, Professor, I have rather pessimistic and provocative problems which bothers me. So if you allow me, I can share them.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Bother does mean, it doesn't mean that you know a solution at all. But just share
Yeah.
what problem for right now.
All right. All of them are interlinked, by the way. They originate from one to another. So maybe I'll just go with the top one. So the top, which eventually comes back to like the example you shared as well, Professor, right? That the fish having the quantity of plastic, right? So when I think of like any solving any problem, like like a nuclear bomb problem, right? You find something like a nuclear bomb, or the DDT problem where the bio accumulation happened in this So my worry is like, these days they also try to do it impact assessment. So how do we, when even we, especially when it comes to like bringing solutions, science solutions to mass, which eventually sometimes end up creating bigger problem than the smaller problem they were solving, right? Even plastic is a good example. So my problem is like, how do we build an holistic impact assessment, with the science, so that whenever we do, we have a clear cut idea that yes, we can go ahead, yes, or we cannot. Because sometimes maybe some problems we were able to fix it back, but what if we could not, right? What if something is, there's code which we do not understand probably, I'm assuming, completely, right? Which we cannot fix retrospectively. So yeah, so that's kind of one problem, but of course it leads from one to another. Basically, what
Yeah, no, I
happens in the
think,
grant.
yeah, what
Yeah.
you're
So
referring to is also for a lot of times implementations, and we don't even have rigorous frameworks. So carbon sequestration is a great example. We don't have any rigorous framework to say what should be done, even if somebody has a potential idea. The medical field itself, our frameworks are not very rigorous. In agriculture, I mean, invasive species is a classic example. I know Minion joined from Australia. Many of you know the famous sets of problems and what. So, gene drive is a phenomenal example. We don't as yet have a good framework to be thinking about. So, these types of frameworks and having a quantitative approach to measurement is a critical criteria in some of these. So, I mean, I would argue it also requires a healthy debate in society, and having a society that is engaged in many of these policy issues itself. So I think that would be a phenomenal thing. I wouldn't say this is in a pessimistic tone. I think the more we're going to rely on technology for our lives, the more people have to be engaged in the decision-making process of what we allow and scale. But currently, that's driven primarily by markets, but there is something else that we also need that balances those markets. I mean, cell phone access is a great example of this. Should we give cell phone access to kids? By default, that's happening right now in many countries across the world. Okay, next is Rena.
Hi, so I'm Raina. I'm originally from Mumbai, but I'm currently a student at Stanford, so based from here. And yeah, there's a lot of problems that kind of concern me, but I think one major one is like I think people have talked about it, like diseases not going away, and I'm very concerned about how climate change is affecting infectious diseases. I'm doing research on that currently on campus, but I think it's a really under-researched and underserved topic because it's going to become more and more relevant as we have spatial changes in how diseases occur and new ecosystems that are just not prepared for the havoc that these diseases are going to cause there. So, really interested in thinking about ways to deal with that, how to best prepare scientists to deal with, like, what does education have to do, what role does policy have to do in trying to take a interdisciplinary approach towards these problems.
Mhm. Next, there is Firdaus. I don't know if I get the name right.
Yeah, hi, it's Firdaus. You pronounced it correctly. Hi, I'm Firdaus. I'm currently living in Germany. I'm actually started my PhD in Max Planck, but I'm originally from India, Kolkata. And I'm studying an intersection of biophysics and gene regulation in biology and a bit of synthetic biology. So I feel like a lot of scientific research that we do is not available to general public just to even think and scientifically think like children's and all. So I'm really passionate about engaging with general population and popularizing science and scientific methods.
Next, there is Daniel.
Hey everyone, I'm Daniel. I'm a first year master's here at Stanford. I'm doing mechanical engineering, and my interests kind of lie in the ocean space. I think, kind of spurred by my upbringing in Southern California. I always remember like after many rainstorms, they're like, oh, you shouldn't go in the ocean for a couple of days. And think about like all the pollution that goes in the ocean every time a weather event like that happens, and along with all the microplastics going in, are kind of a starting space that I definitely want to look into for a project.
I love the very personal origin of that story, actually, Daniel. My story of rainfall and ocean is Mumbai gets flooded every single time there is rain and there is a high tide. And then it gets really troubling. Next is Anupma. I've known Anupma for many, many years now, but I think many of you don't, so I'll let her introduce herself.
Okay, so hi, I hope you can hear me. I'm Anupma. I basically have a degree in molecular biology. I worked with B16 melanoma cells for my PhD. That was about 27 years ago. I've been an academician for the last 23 years. And in the last about 7, 8 years, I have taken up the mission of reaching out to a large population of young adults, helping them to be aware of what is antimicrobial resistance, and getting them to this danger that is looming large on all of us as a population. My brother is a medical person, and so I saw him working at the TB hospital in Bombay, and he lost two of his friends who were doctors. So the way multi-drug resistant tuberculosis is spreading, uh, I thought it would be good if a large population is aware of, what the dangers are, what are the remedial measures, what isolation means, how awareness can actually help, and not just run away into a remote place and then even spread it even more. So I took it upon myself, and I was helped by a few grants to take this message further. And I support a lot of my endeavors by my teaching assignments so that I can travel far and wide and take it further. Yeah. So I use the fold scope as a tool in my lesson plan so that it excites children to know their foe, and then they kind of are able to understand that, oh, bacteria are different, so drugs are different, and that's how this whole thing kind of unfolds. Yeah.
And Anupma is a master trainer and incredible in taking full scopes to some very remote parts of the country, actually. So if you go read her Microcosmos posts, you'll kind of see her traveling across. I'm very jealous sometimes, the kinds of places she's able to go and bring these tools to. And I think spending a lot of time with the community is an important aspect of this. So when you're starting to think about these projects, embed yourself in the problem that you're thinking about. And that's a great example. Okay, next is Carlos.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I am Carlos. I am from Mexico. I some kind of research professor in a small research center here in Mexico. I come from the fluid dynamics community. Recently, I tried to combine experiments and computational modeling. My recent research are oriented to use polymeric membranes for particle filtration for different applications, environment, health, energy. But my perspective is from numerical modeling. I am trying to collaborate with some people here in Mexico in other research laboratories. These people design and synthesize this type of membranes. Well, I am working in writing proposals to acquire funds to make experiments. Well, we have many shortcomings here in my country. For one side, I can interested in the development of low-cost tools for to monitor pollution, for example, in some lakes in the region. I have only interest in social science, not only to bringing knowledge to people with access, but I am interested in promoting scientific thinking This is I think this is one important aspect of social science. Thank you.
Thanks, Carlos. And Carlos, which area in Mexico are you in?
Originally I born in Chiapas, at the south of the country, but currently I live almost in the center of the country. The state is called Querétaro.
And then I'm assuming you're at a university there, or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Tushar.
Hi, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hi. I'm Tushar. I'm a second year physics major at Asoka University with minors in bio and math, I guess. So yeah, I took the Frugal Science course last year as well. So that's when I realized my interest in biophysics and using those ideas to work on social issues, and that's what I'm trying to do right now, and that's what I'm involved in. So last year I was working on this problem of open defecation in India. I don't know how many of you are aware of that, but like there are still millions of people just in North India alone who are defecating openly despite many of the policies that are established and the stuff that the government has done. So that problem still bothers me a lot because I live in like Asoka is in Sonipat, which is like in North India, and that region has a lot of people who defecate openly. So yeah, I guess that's one of the problems that I've been thinking about a lot.
Yeah. And I think what I love about this, Tushar took on this and brought this challenge. He actually visited many villages across close to Sonipat in Haryana last year. And I'm actually excited. I think one of the things that ends up happening is we made a lot of headway, but there is still a lot more to be done. And so many of the contexts of sets of problems that you start, they're not going to be solved in a quarter. They require a steady effort to even find a gripping in the ground in at least a couple of years. And it's important that you should consider this as a community that you can always rely and fall back on, and also recruit people from, build sets of teams, grow that project. And so when you're looking at the idea board, don't just look at what we create this year. Go back to all of the idea boards that we have created, all the sets of projects. People are incredibly collaborative. So it's very important to kind of anchor around, and especially when you also, while you are in Ashoka, Tushar, you have access, you're local to the community. So you can understand, not just read in a newspaper about this problem, but you can literally walk around and see it. Okay, next is Raghad.
Hi everyone, I'm Ragad. I'm from Saudi Arabia, but currently studying at Stanford, so that's where I'm connecting from. And right now I'm working on helping launch a pilot in Uttar Pradesh for screening rheumatic heart disease in adolescents. I think the biggest thing that bothers me is how many diseases are very easily prevented and treated that still affect such a large portion of the population, and that many of the decisions that impact the largest number of disease outcomes are made by a very small number of people. So as a result of that, I'm really interested in local manufacturing and just more democratized access to diagnostics.
Okay, next is Dipali.
Hello everyone, I'm Dipali Gadam from Mumbai, India, and I have completed my graduation in electronics and telecommunication, and I love science and design, and in my free time I always do some artwork and paint, and I love adventures like Manu Prakash ji always do. And currently I'm working in IIT Bombay, and I mostly work around the electronics and embedded systems and IoT devices. So since few days or few weeks, one question is bothering me because currently I'm working on very famous tire manufacturing company. So my question is, how much microplastic, specifically tires from vehicle, they produce?
Yeah, and I think Dipali, a couple of things. So first of all, I've also known Dipali for many, many years. And when she said that she's interested in art, maybe Dipali, you should run a Friday session. She's being very modest.
How to
It would
do
be remarkable.
cartoons, how to draw
Absolutely. You should
cartoons
run a
and
Friday
yes.
session, maybe with Minyan on visualization and graphics. And I mean, it's just really remarkable, some of her paintings. On the tires, particularly, I think because microplastic has come about quite a lot, there's lots of really good estimates. That would be a really nice estimate by numbers problem. You know, why do we even change tires? We change tires because they disappear. Where do they go? They actually mostly go in the air. And so tire-based microplastics is a significant portion of airborne microplastics. And because of friction, it's actually much, much smaller. And so it would be fantastic to think a little bit about residence time of specifically tire-borne plastics. Lots of things are in place, then you can, you know, it's a phenomenal problem to be thinking about. Okay, next in my list is Rupesh.
Yeah, hi everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. I'm Rupesh Kadam. So I'm also from Mumbai and currently staying in Pune. So I am an undergraduate. So I graduated from electronics and telecommunication engineering. So currently working at Whirlpool. Many of people in the US may recognize the brand KitchenAid. So primarily I work on that brand. So one of the problem that currently I'm bothered with is like the air quality in India and how it is slowly killing people, and how it can be diagnosed earlier, before we get asthma, with the help of impulse oscillometry or measuring the impedance of the lung tissues. So thinking about that quite lately.
Yeah, and I think again the air side of the story, you should definitely do the estimates on something like this because it would be very valuable for people to understand the rise of lung cancer. I mean, it's always been the biggest cancer amongst lung is a very difficult tissue to treat. So it's primarily quite a challenging. And so doing certain sets of statistics on that would actually be really valuable as a step one.
Yeah, during my
Next is,
internship I was also,
yeah,
yeah, sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, during my internship at IIT Bombay, so we were figuring about the creating some impulse oscillometry open source thing. So we were tackling that, and from that I got the hang of it, and it is quite difficult to measure, and it is very, what can we say, it is very difficult to measure the resistance or impedance of their lungs. These are very difficult problem to tackle. Yeah.
Yeah. Next is Shivam. Shivam, are you there?
I think it's the same Shivam. I think it's two. I've joined from two different.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, next is Shrishti Sharma.
Hi, so I'm a software engineer and I basically do front-end engineering work, and I was just curious about citizen science projects and how I can like make a meaningful contribution. So, and also like wanting to get in touch with like high school biology, like it was a really long time back when I was studying these things. So yeah, just out of curiosity, I've joined this class.
That's fantastic. Next is Shivika. Oh, we already covered
I
Shilika.
already did, yes.
Okay, yeah, I think you guys are moving around because some people are disconnected. If I call on someone who's already been covered, let me know. I think Alexander.
Um, I'm a master's student at Stanford, and I'm in the same lab as Aiden. So I'm doing research on neutrophils too. One problem that I was interested in is the environment, and then also I think when Megan mentioned it, I kind of realized it was kind of true for myself. So like my undergrad was in mechanical engineering, but in high school I had the chance to run some uh like Western blots and stuff like that in my biology class. So that was something that kind of stuck with me as I decided to pursue biology instead of mechanical engineering after I finished my undergrad. So I think that that is something that's really important for making things like that accessible, so that people can be more informed about how they want to pursue their own futures.
Next on the list for me is Ketan.
Hello everyone, am I audible? Yeah, so I'm a information technology graduate and I work as a software engineer based out of Hyderabad, India. I was born in Jammu and Kashmir, which is basically the foothills of Himalayas. So climate change has bothered me since my childhood. And the particular thing which bothers me is ankylosing spondylitis because last month my mother had a hip replacement surgery. And Dr. Kavita here researches on the same thing. So thank you, Mani sir, for connecting with me. And one thing which I would like to tell you is that your video with Mark Rober, which I saw many, many years ago, has prompted me to land here. So thank you for that.
Fire in the galley.
Okay, so it turns out there is an emergency drill that I have to run. It's a drill that's unannounced, so I will have to leave right away. There's no emergency. It is a drill, but I need to do this, otherwise I'll be marked absent. Kevin, you should continue the introductions, record it, and I'll see you all on Monday. I have to go. I'm sorry. Bye, everyone. But Kevin, you should continue.
Okay, I'll continue facilitating it. It's hard to keep track of who went and who did not go, so maybe I could just allow whoever you can raise your hand on Zoom or you could just chime in and I'll arbitrate. Okay, Vaibhav?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. So my name is Vaibhav Shokeen. I'm a third-year undergraduate student here at Ashoka University. My undergraduate is in computer science and mathematics with a minor in physics. And I'm really passionate about the air pollution problem in Delhi. That's the city where I live. And it has one of the worst air qualities in India. A lot because of garbage burning and stubble burning in nearby areas as well. Another thing I'm interested in is integrating AI with diagnostics to bring the cost down. So, and reduce the burden in high intensity areas. So, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Next we have Margaret.
Hello. I'm a fifth year PhD student at the University of Pittsburgh. I do systems biology of aging, lots of computational genomics and transcriptomics. Something that bothers me is the lack of a space to do research that isn't either a traditional academic setting or a very commercialized industry space. And with the sort of overall destruction of government science, at least in the US right now, it feels increasingly like there are only these two options, neither of which are conducive to doing the sort of research I want to do, which is much more open access. A question I could tackle or would be interested in tackling is I study genetics of reproductive age, and I would be very curious to look at older public health records to see what the average age, if we could find an average age of menopause before early medical documentation and this sort of current medical paradigm was established. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Next, I have Singal.
Oh, yeah. Hi, all. I'm Earth. I'm dialing in from Philadelphia. I am a research assistant to a collaboration between MIT CSAIL and IIT Delhi. My research interest primarily lies in the socioeconomic aspects of people residing in different air quality areas in India. And I also research on the design principle behind air purifiers for India. I happen to be running a little nonprofit building agency in the under-resourced youth through a lot of maker education and design thinking courses. Have been privileged to have Professor Manu support very initially. For the course, I am really excited to be a part of it, and I'm really looking forward to working somewhere in the healthcare for all sector. I'm interested about the frugal diagnostic devices somewhere in the citizen science spaces as well. So that is what is of primary interest to me.
Awesome. Thank you for joining in. And just a general reminder, like, don't forget to add these ideas on the idea board on the Notion. I think many of these are like so awesome. And I hear some similarities that'd be awesome to kind of gather in one place on the page as well. Next on my screen, I have Gargi. Okay, if not available right now, I have Divyanshi.
Yeah, hi, am I audible?
Yes.
All right. Hi, I'm Divyanshi. I'm a PhD student at IIM Trichy. I'm from India. I research in, though the broader subject is organizational behavior, but I'm working on wellness. It mostly concerns with stress, well-being, psychological well-being, and identity conflict which people face, mainly because of the advent of this whole concept of meta-identity, right? So this is the area where I'm currently working upon, and I'm interested to, extend it in the field of biology as well, like hardcore biology, because my undergrad was in biotechnology. I have been the part of this cohort since 2020. I have worked on a lot of interesting projects, but they were mainly about educating the people. So now I want to really get my hands dirty upon the things which deal with health, like core health. Yeah, that's it about me. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Next on my screen, I have Aryan.
Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everything to all of you present here. I am Aryan. I'm from Delhi, as I mentioned earlier. So I don't belong to Delhi per se. Like, I'm pursuing my undergraduate from Delhi in economics and mathematics. It's a Bachelor of Arts course. I've been termed as a very staunch critique of the microeconomic theory. So that is something that I've been working on as to how to find more ways to critique that theory and finding loopholes. But other than that, there honestly, I'm like just 21 years old, exploring the different kinds of problems that I see on a daily basis, and I keep identifying them. And like I mentioned plastic earlier, one of the other key problems, primarily because of a sociological standpoint in studies, has been human habituation, world systems analysis, and how certain social systems play a role in dividing our society in certain segments. And then how does the technological advancements and developments, rather not just advancements but developments, rather, take a shape and transcend those different systems. So a rather complex and a more broader scope of how I am able to identify problems. And I think through this class, I want to delve into how I can learn to boil down to some specific problems, identify solutions, and then scale it to a level and see the world in a different lens. I would really looking forward to this, and lovely to be present here. Thank you so much.
Happy to have you here. Next, we have Niti.
Hi all. I'm a working professional and I work with semiconductors. So I basically implement the GPUs at NVIDIA at Santa Clara here in California. And basically, I'm from Uttar Pradesh in India. The reason I want to have this course is because I want to have, I mean, basically, it's about the perspective how the frugal science works in general. So, that is one thing which I want to imbibe in me and what I work. And also, let's say, going forward, if I want to plan and like start something, as Professor told about the quantitativeness. So, basically, more about the perspective. And also, there are a couple of things that bothers me majorly, like helping older people, like education and differentially able people. And the main thing that bothers me is the differential ability of the people who can't hear and speak. So I would want to do something in that space, and I would see where I can get to. And it was nice joining with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Niti. I like that you mentioned like learning at all ages, really embodying lifelong learners. Yeah. Next on the screen, Rupali.
Hello. Hi. Hi all. I'm Rupali. I'm from Mumbai, India, and I'm a BTech graduate chemical engineer. And I have worked in hydrogen sector for 2 years after my graduation. And currently, I'm on a career break as I'm figuring out my higher studies in PhD and mostly in sustainability. I'm a sustainability enthusiast, and the very the huge problem which bothers me all the time past few years is the waste and anthropogenic waste which we create, and I mean it's a very unsustainable waste, and the designs we develop are highly unsustainable so far. Many people also talked about that we end up like keeping it as a trash and we don't know how to deal with it at the end. So I'm very much interested in how to deal with that waste. And then parallelly, I am curious and learning about regenerative designs also. That how so far it's a visionary thing, but I'm interested in that. Yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you, Rupali. Lastly, Gargi, are you back?
Hello. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Go on with, you can go ahead with your introduction.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Gargi, and I'm from India, based in the city of New Delhi. I am into science communications and outreach and public engagement with the Department of Biotechnology, which is under the Ministry of Science and Technology from the Wellcome Trust India Alliance. And one question that bothers me is how we can make science accessible to all. Like, for example, I'm interested in developing science education tools, like, for example, biotechnology tools, and also, as Manu mentioned, about the molecular tools that can be harnessed and develop drive curiosity among children, young people, because I believe that only through innovative science education and learning, creative learning, many people who are from the inaccessible resource settings or the lower resource settings, they will get a chance to improve themselves and build better communities for better future, better health, and also address the global health issues which we are currently facing. So I am looking forward to develop and contribute science educational tools, frugal science education tools.
Awesome. Thank you, Gargi. Okay, I think that should wrap up about everybody. Manu is not here, but since I'm one of the TAs, do you have any questions for me regarding how this class is run, logistics, or any other hiccups? Happy to help right now if people are still on. Okay, yeah. Otherwise, feel free to send one of the TAs an email, including me. I'll just drop my email address here again. Thank you again for your patience, for giving us time to iron out a lot of these logistical details as well. We appreciate your attendance and look forward to seeing you next Monday. Cool. Otherwise, I will troubleshoot some things right here as well. Carlos, are you still on the call?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I believe I sent the invites to you already. Let me also stop